Alright, we are at the stage of getting the divider that I have marked out here for the placement on here, and I got this piece from over on the lumber that turns out is just about the height that we want. So if I line it up here, it's a smidge over and a smidge over for the total length that we want. What we want is from the top of the top to the bottom of the bottom. And that way we can have a half lap here, because we're going to cut half of this guy out and cut a notch in here, and then this guy will slide in there, so that we want the front to be flush with the two shelves on this side, and then the back to be flush with the shelves on the back side. So we're going to need to measure halfway across this guy, just like we did halfway across that guy, and then we'll cut out the notch here and cut out the corresponding notch in there, and we can slide that in there. And I haven't done this to this point because we want to make sure that this guy and this guy are directly over each other, because if they're not, then your divider ends up being wonky, and I'm exaggerating, I hope, ends up being on a diagonal, and that's not going to go well. It's not going to slide in well, it's going to look awful. But what we want is for this guy to be straight up and down and to slide in, and that will do a couple of things. One of them is it's a divider. And then the other thing is it will help keep the shelves and the sides and everything more rigid and straight up and down, and not have any racking side to side, which might happen especially if your mortise and tenon is a little bit on the loose side. So we're going to be measuring down 3/4 of an inch, because that's how thick this is, and this guy is just barely the right height. So we'll measure down 3/4 of an inch and up 3/4 of an inch for both of these guys, and then halfway across, that'll be 2 3/4 inches, because this is a 5.5 inch piece. So 2 3/4 and 2 3/4, and we'll lay out our notches for both of those. All right, I have my square set to 2 inches, and what I'm going to want is 3/4 of an inch down. So 1/4, 2/4, 3/4 of an inch down, and mark it. And then I'm going to extend this because I need to get all the way out to 2 3/4 inches. So I'm going to take this guy and go to 2 3/4 inches from that dot. So take this guy, slide up to it. So pencil in our mark that we know is 3/4 of an inch from the top. And we're going to go all the way to 2 3/4, so that's this guy all down here. And this is going to be our shoulder line that we're going to want to cut. And then we're going to take this guy, and we are also going to draw this line, because that's going to be the other part of the shoulder. So, all right. So there's our layout for our half lap that's going to be on the divider. We already have our layout for the half lap that is on the shelves. And we're going to repeat that on the other side. We want this to wrap around so that we can make sure that we agree with ourselves on both sides, because that would be awkward if you don't agree with yourself. So you can turn this up and slide over to this guy and make sure that you have one line that wraps around. So when we go like this, we should have one line that wraps around, and then we're going to come to the other side and do the same thing. And we will go up to 2 3/4 of an inch also, and mark. Give ourselves a point that we can slide up to. And now here's the moment of truth. Do I agree with myself from the front to the side along the end? So let's see if I can agree with myself here. Let's mark that guy. And I have a line here, and yeah, I misset that on that side. When I reset it, I got it. To agree with myself, so from this side around to that side, I agree with myself, and now I have this chunk here that I'm going to be cutting out. And I'm going to make the same measurements on the other side, and you need to make sure that you're making the same measurements on the same, from the same edge going down here. Since I'm coming down from this edge, I also need to be coming down from that edge. So we're going to measure 3/4 of an inch in and put a dot. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 3/4 of an inch in, put a dot, and then come down 2 3/4 inches. Pencil in the dot so I can slide up to it, keeping the lip flush. Come to 2 3/4 inches. And then I need to go across to the other side and do the same thing on the other side to make sure that this guy wraps around. And now these two guys I will be cutting out now that I have, and notice that I have my layout on the same side. And when I cut these guys out, this guy will be sliding from the back towards the front. I've cut out the notches for the divider on the scroll saw. Not showing that, as you've seen enough scroll saw for this project, so you should know how to use it by now. One thing that I discovered halfway into this cut, something felt a little bit wrong, and I don't know if you can see it there, but this guy is a little bit angled because the table was off by about 3 degrees. So I finished that cut, and then I fixed the table to be correct and at 0, not tilted. So this one is nice and flush. This one is at 90 degrees cut. This guy, however, is off, so I'm going to have to go back and fix that there. And you can see I cut on the line there and not on the line here. So I'm going to have to recut it flush so that this top part gets shaved off. If I don't do that, not only will, let's see here, there you go. Not only will the one part be too high, so I come in here, can't quite get this on there, have to tilt to the side and shove it. Not only will the one side be too high to make it hard to get in, but on the front side you're going to see a tilted divider, and it's going to be constantly pushing and wanting to push it off. And the whole point of the divider is to support it top and bottom and keep everything square. So going to recut that and then check our alignment with these two guys, and then disassemble this so that we can cut these guys. Recut with the table set appropriately. Now let's see how this fits. I hope it's a tight fit. It is, oh good. It is a very tight fit, but I can do it. And my layout lines on the shelf line up with that guy there, and my layout lines on the bottom shelf also line up nicely. Now, before we go and cut these guys, we want to make sure that this guy really is vertical and perpendicular. So I'm going to set this guy up here, put my square there, and oh good, I've got the lip flush here, and then this guy goes straight against there. I have my top and my bottom shelves are aligned, so if I cut out exactly on this guy and I cut out exactly on that guy, my divider will be perpendicular to them both, which is exactly what I want. So now it's time to disassemble our table here, to take the shelves over, and we'll cut them out. checking the table to make sure it's at 0, checking the clamp to make sure it's tight. Safety goggles on, and let's go. All right, both guys cut out. Let's go test fit them.